Shalom, family. As you see, the title of this lesson in the image is Understanding the Sun and the Moon using the Book of Enoch. But before we go into the Book of Enoch, we're going to go over some scriptures in the 66 that's not in the Apocrypha. Um, so we're going to talk about the calendar in the 66 that Yah gave us to follow. Many people debate which calendar is correct. Some look at formulas, fixed 12-month years, or even 364-day solar calendars. But the truth is simple. Yah never commanded mathematical calendars. He commanded observation. The problem begins when we stop observing and try to force the calendar to fit a human system. Today we're going to see why observation, not formulas, is the key. So let's get to the scriptures. And what we're going to look at is, give me 1 second, family. I'm trying to, on my end, get it to where I can see so you can see. And we are going to the book of Genesis. And we're going to start at 1 and verse 4. Before we can go into the book of Enoch and understand the sun and the moon and their cycles and the stars and so on and so forth, we must first recognize the tools that Yah gave us to measure the time. From the very beginning, Yah set the sun to govern the days and the seasons, the moons to mark the months and appointed feasts, and the cycle of the day and night to define each day. By observing these creations continually, we can follow Yah's instruction and keep the feasts in their proper seasons without relying on man-made calculations. What I'm seeing is when we're trying to make calendars go out years and years and years and years, what I'm seeing so far is that's the problem. Because he said observe. He said he set them there for us to look at. They're not just there for no reason where you don't go outside and look. And it's outside of the Hebrew custom, or I'm not even gonna say Hebrew, the ancient customs of telling time. They went outside and looked at the sun and the moon and so on and so forth. Later on in time came these calendars. But let's go down to Genesis chapter 1, verse 4. No, hold on, wait a minute. Are we at 4? We're going to 14. I'm sorry. I can't read my notes. And Elohim said, Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. The sun and the moon are Yah's timekeepers. That's what he created them for. He created those for us to look up there and be able to see. The moon governs the months in appointed feasts, the Moedim, but the day and night cycles give us days starting at even. And you see in Genesis 1 and 5, and Elohim called the light day, in the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So we could see how he arranged it. He did it for us. That's something that he did himself. And the number one thing that keeps on pressing in my head is when you think about it, man has destroyed everything on earth. The animals in their natural state, plants in their natural state, water in its natural state, the soil in its natural state that it was created in. The one and only thing that man can't get to is the sun, the moon, and the stars. That's the number one thing. And then another thing that got me, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is how the scriptures that talk about Yah speeding up time, but it really wasn't exactly what I thought it was until I looked at it today. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So now we're going to go to the book of Psalms. We're going to go to 104 and verse 19. And here he also says, he appointed the moons for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. Feasts are tied to months, but months must align with the seasons. And the seasons are within the days and the nights. You could tell the equinox, the equilux, one of them. I'm not even going to use those terms yet, just because I don't want to confuse nobody. But there's a point in time where the daylight hours and the night hours are the same amount of time. That's lets you know, and even though now we don't have people up watching and counting, so on and so forth, things like that, but you can go to sleep and you can look at your clock. I went to sleep when the sun first went down. I got up and the sun set at blah. The sun rose at blah 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 blah. You know how many hours it was dark outside. You know how many hours it was light outside. So we have an advantage. If they went to sleep and didn't keep up, they wouldn't know. The next thing that we're going to go over is that the feast must stay in the seasons, and the seasons don't change. Sai was talking about it today on his live, how like there's stuff outside, everybody's allergies is messed up because things are blooming because um, outside of their seasons and stuff like that. With a little bit of extra light or a little bit of extra warmth, you can get plants to do anything as long as you give them the things that they need. If they need, for instance, poinsettias. If you ever had a poinsettia, somebody you probably throw them away. If you still buy them during Christmas time, that's usually when you see them. I have bought one and I kept it. It got huge and I got it to bloom. So all it needs is a cool, dark space. It needs to be in the cool, dark space for um, 16 hours or something like that. Sometimes I will leave it in there for 2 days because I'd forget, but it still had, it got what it needed to bloom. And it's not even in its natural, where it is native to. It's all it needs is those things to get it to do that thing. So that's what I'll say about plants. But back to the feast must stay in their seasons. Yah commanded that his feasts always occur in appointed seasons, tied to the cycles of the sun, moon, and the natural harvest. Passover and unleavened bread mark the spring barley harvest. Weeks, Pentecost aligns with the wheat harvest. And Tabernacle celebrated the final harvest in autumn. By observing seasons, we ensure the feast remain in the time that Yah set, rather than being shifted by human-made calendars. I'm telling y'all, what I am seeing is that the calendars are the issue. We are trying to fix things to fit these calendars. When I'm not going to say people don't need them, because I want to be sensitive to people that may have to put in vacation days 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 6 months, some people ahead of time. But the way that I see it is, as long as you're walking in obedience, Yah's going to make sure that you get to keep his feast. Point blank, period, the end. The problem isn't his power, the problem is your obedience. Let's just say you have to keep a feast and your job says you can't get off. Who are you going to pick? Who's your power? Yah or your work? I know that's where you make your physical, what you need physically to sustain your life, but come on, who's more powerful than Yah? He's going to take care of you. So we're going to go to Leviticus. We're going to go to 23, and we're going to go to verse 4. These are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. They have seasons. Passover, spring, barley harvest. Unleavened bread, spring. First fruits, spring. Feast of weeks, late spring, wheat harvest. Trumpets, atonement, tabernacles. Final fall harvest. Final harvest, I'm sorry. The main point is seasonal alignment, not arbitrary month counting. That's the issue that I'm seeing so far is the month counting or the years counting. That's why it's not working. And you have to add so many days and so many, so on and so forth. This is what I'm seeing. Yah never commanded us to calculate a year in advance or create formulas to force the calendar to fit human systems. Instead, he gave us the sun and the moon and day and night cycles as living guides to observe continually. When we rely on observation rather than rigid calculations, the feasts always fall in their appointed season, keeping us in the harmony with Yah's timing. That's the key thing. It's Yah's timing, not ours, not our calendars. We can't. That's just like how they say when you come into the truth, coming out of Christianity, and you're trying to bring along what you did in Christianity into the truth. You can't do it. It never works. They'll never synchronize. They'll never get synchronized. Um, Trying to fix the calendar with man-made rules leads to drift and confusion, just like where you have to add a 13th month. But careful observation aligns us perfectly with Yah's design. He created this. He did not create a calendar. He did not create a way for us to keep the calendar. Most of the stuff that is about adding or subtracting, all those things is in Jubilees. And if you have not looked at Jubilees with tell us with you know without the naked eye, you need to get in Jubilees and look at it. You need to get in Jubilees and start matching some of these things up that it says in there, and it shows that it goes against some of the things in the 66. And there's more things than that was introduced to me in the beginning. And I don't want to get on a rampage about that. I want people to start figuring this out and reading it for themselves. Because just like me, somebody introduced it to me, and I got to reading, and I got to looking, and I'm like, oh, well, this is wrong. Well, this is wrong because it says this in Psalms, or it says this in um, Leviticus, or it says this in Exodus, in the book of Exodus. It really needs to be looked at. It really needs to be studied just for you to be able to see why are we using this. There are a lot of opinions in Jubilees. Opinions of who, I haven't got to the bottom of that. I've only touched the surface. But even when you just touch the surface, you will see that Jubilees there's something going on in Jubilees that we need to find to go through there. So the human calendar tries to force months into a year. Intercalations, 12-month formulas, 364-day systems, these are man-made solutions. Yah did not command that we calculate a year in advance. He commanded that we observe continually. Observation equals watching the sun, moon, day and night cycles in the agricultural science that like like the barley, in the bib. First I was kind of like, um do we really need confirmation from like Israel, modern day Israel? And I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, I know Israel is not what they are saying that it is, but it's close to the climate of where our land is. If it not being a part of our land, which that's another subject. I don't even want no parts of that. Wherever the land is, it's there and it's waiting for us to get there. That's how, if you ask me, that's how I feel about it. It's waiting on us to get there. I don't need to figure it out. Yahweh Shah knows he'll show us when he comes back. But because of the climate there is similar to what the true land, um, maybe we do need to be looking into getting, but I am a skeptical person. You could tell me it's raining outside, I can hear it, and I'm still looking. I am still looking. That's just my nature. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But that's just who I am. That's how I see it. Um, so I'm gonna keep on moving on. When we try to force a calendar, we lose sight of what Yah wants. continuous observation, not just enough to make a year-long calendar, or however long you're trying to move along. Observation is continual. We know that. You got to watch it. You got to go out there. You got to look at it. Even if you miss a couple of days, like me, it's been cloudy and rainy here. And where the time went up, I go to sleep a little bit earlier. So I usually, at this part of the month, I could usually catch the moon going down in the morning on my way to work, but it's been cloudy and raining. So I couldn't really see it. But we need to be observing the moon to know the months, observe the sun to know the seasons in the year. We also, another addition to this is we need to observe the day and night to know the days. We need to know how long the days are compared to the nights, because that connects you to the season. And we're going to go over in the next part of this, not in this lesson, but in the next part of this. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a verse in Enoch that tells you how you figure out if your calendar's right. But I can't remember where it is, but I know I have it in my notes. And of course I have the Zephyr, and I have it highlighted. So observe the moon, observe the sun, observe daylight and nighttime hours, and observe the land. See when crops ripen for the feast. Where I live in Kentucky, it gets cold here. Nothing like no corn, no nothing's growing besides the stuff that's in the ground that grows naturally. We don't start our growing season until the beginning of May. So it wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to look anywhere here unless it was in a greenhouse or something like that. But even still, if it's in a greenhouse, it's kind of man made a little bit. That's the way I see it. So trying to force a year through human calculations will drift away from y'all's appointed times, and that's what's happening. That's what I'm seeing is happening. That's why we can't get it right. That's why there's confusion. That's why there's so many debates over calendars. But the debates are empty if we simply follow y'all's instructions and observe continually. You will see that these calendars are vain. There's no life in them. There's no benefit. Sometimes you may get it right, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can't get it perfect. Hey, so now we're going to go over a little bit of, just a little bit of why the Book of Jubilees can't be trusted for y'all's calendar. While some people try to use the Book of Jubilees to support a fixed calendar, it can't be relied on for the following reasons. Reason number one, which this is a reason, but it's not a real reason to me because Enoch's not part of the 66. Jubilees is an extra biblical book, so is Enoch, but I haven't found any contradictions in Enoch. I haven't yet. I'm not gonna say yet. I haven't. So far, I've read the whole book. I haven't read the whole book with a fine tooth comb. But so far, everything that Enoch is telling us about the sun and moon, we can look up there and see. It's not a contradiction. We can look up there and see. Gives us his laws, feasts, and calendar instructions in the Torah and the rest of Scripture, not in Jubilees. Jubilees, the number two reason why it can't be relied on, it adds human opinions and calculation. Jubilees fixes the year at 364 days and assigns weekdays to feast. These are man-made rules, not commands of Yah. The Torah never commands a fixed solar lunar system. It emphasizes observation of the sun, moon, and the seasons, and daylight and nighttime hours. Those all together is how you know what time it is. Not just the sun, not just the moon, not just the seasons. All of them together, including how many hours is in the day and how many hours is in the night. The biggest the biggest thing for me why Jubilees is not reliable is because it contradicts scriptures in places. Certain rules in Jubilees don't align with Exodus, Leviticus, or Deuteronomy. Using it as a source risks following human ideas instead of Yah's laws. The number four reason why it's not reliable. Observation, not formula, is what Yah commands. And when you read in the 66, he's saying to observe it. Scripture repeatedly points to what's the natural signs, to watch the natural signs. I'm sorry, sun, moon, barley and a bee, day, night cycle, so on and so forth. That's what he's commanding us. And relying on Jubilees can distract us from God's instructions in the 66 books because we're so focused on everything else. We're not looking at the simplicity of Genesis. He made the sun and the moon, put it inside the firmament. Man can't get to it. They for signs, seasons, and months, so on and so forth. It is distracting us from a whole lot. It's causing a lot of confusion. The Book of Jubilees is, because that's where most of the people are getting these instructions from. Jubilees can be studied as a historical document, but it can't be treated as authoritative. To follow Yah's calendar faithfully, we must observe his creations directly, not follow man-made formulas. That is what the issue is man-made formulas. So to sum this segment of, I'm not sure how many lessons this is going to take. The next lesson, once I figure out how to get either my Sefer app up here or how to get the Apocrypha up on here, I'm working it out. It's going to be going over Enoch and what Enoch says, and how to observe the sun and the moon cycles. And a lot of people, like the ones in our women's chat, the ones on ISO Wisdom, the ISO Wisdom family page, excuse me, we've been watching the moon. So we can see what Enoch's saying, and you can see that he didn't make that up. It's not, there's no contradictions, there's no added anything extra. Everything he said so far about the cycles, I mean, we haven't went through a 12-month cycle, but we went through a whole month, and everything that he said that the sun and the moon was going to do, it did it. So to conclude, what I'm going to say is Yah's calendar is alive. It moves with the sun, moon, and season, not with man's numbers. Our task is not to make formulas or 364-day cycles, but to stay vigilant. Keep watching. And while I'm saying this now, what scripture that came to mind, don't get me on the location, but watch and pray. Watch and pray. If you don't understand, just keep looking out there and pray that Yah give you the wisdom. He'll do it. If you're in obedience, he will give you what you need. We need to be able to keep up with the calendar to keep his peace. If you're in obedience and that's what you're asking for, he's going to give it to you. When we do all of when we do the simplicity of it and we follow it in its natural state without adding anything to it, we will keep the feasts in their appointed seasons and walk in obedience to Yah. That's all we have to do to get this right. Walk in obedience. Fear Yah, keep his commandments. That's the whole matter. Read what it says in Genesis. That's what he told you what the sun and the moon does. There you go. Enoch tells you how to follow it, how to watch it. It doesn't contradict anything that he says in Genesis. So that's what sums it up. Fear Yah, keep his commandments. Listen to what he's telling you. Watch and pray. Be vigilant, and look at what he observe. What he gave you. He gave you the sun and moon. Watch it in the seasons and daylight hours. All of those in connection. So this is the message that I have for this. We're gonna say X parts. I don't know how many parts this is going to be. This is part one. So I hope this helps you out. I would really encourage you to get in the Book of Jubilees and start looking to see what's going on. I'm not saying I don't want to do the work, but I don't want to do the work for everybody else because I feel like if you do it, it will mean much more to you if you look for yourself versus me. Look, maybe I'm just the person to tell you to go look, like somebody told me to go look. So I'm going to end this and I'm going to say Shalom, family.